I want to ask about one of the legs of the nuclear triad, the Ohio Replacement Program, and you have mentioned very correctly the survivability of our submarine force as a means of delivering and defending our nation, delivering a profoundly important deterrent. Let me ask you, are you committed and will you commit to fully supporting the Ohio Replacement Program?
Yes, sir, I will.
And will you commit to being an advocate of it? Because I think it will take advocates in a time of increasingly threatened fiscal resources and a very expensive commitment that is necessary to being an advocate of it.
I will advocate for all of the elements of the nuclear triad, all three.
And maybe you can describe for Americans why the Ohio Replacement Program is so fundamentally important to our nuclear defense.
Well, again, from my background, I'm not as deeply versed in the Navy's nuclear capabilities as I am the Air Force's. Nonetheless, I've looked at that recently to some level, and I'll share my thoughts with you, Senator. My concern is that we'll reach a point in the not-too-distant future where the existing Navy submarines will not be able to effectively and safely conduct their operations because of the age of both the reactor and the ship. And we can never reach that point. That's why the Ohio-class replacement program is so essential, because by the time we reach that point, it is essential that we have a new submarine to replace it.
Thank you. I want to shift to the cybersecurity area, which is related to our capabilities in space, is it not?
Yes.
There was a column recently written by David Ignatius entitled "The Cold War is Over, the Cyber War has Begun." I think it reflects a growing sense that one of the great challenges, if not the biggest, ahead in the immediate future is our increasing confrontation with other powers, notably the Chinese and the Russians, most recently and dramatically the Russians in recent hacking, over their capabilities in cyber and their apparent willingness to use them against us. Do you have any thoughts about how we can work to improve our response to cyber attacks with a coordinated reaction from our entire government? How can domestic agencies best work with the Department of Defense to shore up our security system, both in space and here? And I might add that the chairman and I recently, in a hearing, confronted a number of our security leaders, Admiral Rogers among them, with this kind of question, and I left, frankly, somewhat worried about the ability of this country to respond.
So much of that question is best discussed in the classified forum, but I'll share my top-level thoughts with you, Senator.
Thank you.
So from a big-picture perspective, if you look at space and cyber, and in my current job, we have space and cyber in the same command of the United States Air Force. And a lot of the effects we create are exactly the same. It's to provide information, pathways for information, deny adversaries information in times of conflict. That's what we do in space. That's what we do in cyber. But the difference is the cost of entry into cyberspace is very low. That's the attractiveness for potential adversaries, because the cost of access is so low. So to respond to it, you hit the most important thing. It has to be a whole-of-government response all the way through. From a military perspective, I would like to get to the point in cyberspace where we treat it just as a domain where we conduct operations. We tend to contaminate that discussion with a lot of the legal implications, which are extremely important, that usually are worked through either the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, a number of elements. That's why it has to be a whole-of-government response. But from a military perspective, I think it's essential that we look at cyberspace as a place where bad actors are. We need to be able to identify them, and if they're threatening the United States, we need to be able to eliminate that actor from cyberspace. It's the same as any other domain. It's going to be a very complicated process, though, because it is important. As an American citizen, my privacy is just as important to me as I think it is to every other citizen. But nonetheless, we have to figure out how to treat cyberspace as an operational domain. I think you're right to be worried because we're, in many cases, not fully embracing the military aspects of it.
Thank you very much. Thank you again for your service. I welcome that answer. I'd like to pursue it in another setting, and my time has expired, but this is an important topic. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.